Okay, this video is about why are people so fat. If you look at the American population, obesity really took off just before 1980, and it's dramatically increasing and has continued to increase. So, the question is, well, what happened? People are eating more oils. These omega-6 cooking oils are very bad for health. They're not even really food. They're a toxin. They're highly processed. They're all bad. Olive oil is bad too. It just gets a lot of publicity. Same thing with canola oil. Omega-3 oils are also, liquid fat. All oil is, it's the most caloric dense food that there is. I recommend avoiding it all as best you can. So anyways, we'll talk some more about the omega-6 cooking oils, but they've dramatically increased in parallel to the obesity epidemic. The Japanese neuroscientist Tetsuya Yamashima believes that they're causing damage to the arcuate nucleus, the hunger center, and the hypothalamus, and that's contributing to the obesity. They're also real toxic to the human body. They undergo a lot of lipid peroxidation with the production of toxic aldehydes like hydroxynonenal, HNE. I've given separate lectures about that. But anyways, omega-6 cooking oils is a big thing. Just like look at, the Japanese world, Chinese world, etc. They're eating more cooking oils. And same thing with the people from India. I think a lot of them are getting diabetes. Okay, but anyways, increased caloric density of the diet in general. It used to be people ate more plant foods and they're very low caloric density in comparison with processed foods. UPF means ultra processed foods. Of course, all the oils, animal foods in general. Like look at salmon. Everybody thinks salmon's a health food. It's not. 50% protein, 50% fat. 50% fat is very high fat. The higher the percentage of calories from fat, the fatter the population. There's only 1% of calories from fat in rice, in potatoes. When I say rice, I mean white rice, potatoes, and sweet potatoes. So those help a population to be skinny. Look at China before 1970 when they ate like about 90% of their calories from white rice. 1 billion out of 1 billion are skinny. Okay, increased estrogen disrupting chemicals. These chemicals are ubiquitous in the environment, in part because they're good preservatives. So all the personal care products, lots of foods, they're going to have some type of estrogenic preservative in them. Estrogens are fat storage hormone. They go up when a woman's pregnant, and they help the body to store fat, with the idea that the baby might need that fat later as calories for energy. Okay, but they're in food, kind of ubiquitous. They'll feed them to cattle and other animals to help them grow faster, gain weight. They're in the water supply in a big way. You can remove them easily with carbon filtration, but it's too expensive to do that on a large scale for municipal water. Air pollution, they're related to that as well, but let me explain some other things. Plastics are real common. They're very often terephthalate or some other type of phthalates, estrogenic material. It's better to drink bottled water out of glass from your own reverse osmosis than something that was sitting in a plastic thing for who knows how long. Personal care products, full estrogenic preservatives, parabenzoic acids, etc. Even a lot of the soaps, shampoos, conditioners, laundry, dishwasher detergent. So it's good to be a minimalist, to avoid exposure to all that stuff. More and more high fructose corn syrup to sweeten things. High fructose corn syrup can often be 65% fructose. And in large amounts, like the bolus you get with processed foods, it's tends to be an obesogenic. It's not the same thing as table sugar. Anyway, and also I think the criticism of sugar, including fructose, is overrated. The paleo keto carnivore tries to blame everything on fructose as a way to avoid the problems related to animal foods. Okay, what else? GMO sprayed with atrazine. I mean, typical thing, GMO corn. Atrazine is not only estrogenic, super estrogenic, turns the male frog into a female frog. It's also a mitochondrial inhibitor. Okay, GMO soy with glyphosate. GP is a real strong association there. Percentage with fatty liver. Increased MSG and MFG. These things are part of flavor enhancers, and the food companies now do research to reach what's called the bliss point, the optimal amount of salt, sugar, and oil, and mouth texture to get people addicted to the food. And people are addicted to all these junk foods. They're just in the habit of eating them. Regular food seems bland by comparison. That's kind of what The Pleasure Trap was all about. I gave a recent book report on that if anybody's interested. The Pleasure Trap by Alan Goldhamer and Doug Lyle. Okay, next thing is increasing cortisol. There's a lot of things that are increasing cortisol. Cortisol is the stress hormone to mobilize energy resources to give the person energy to survive during physical stress. which normally to our ancestors was a brief thing, 10, 20, 30 minutes of running from a tiger, okay? Now, though, it can often be psychological stress ongoing for days or weeks. So anyways, that increased cortisol promotes obesity. People are stressed out. Sleep deprivation elevates the same hormones. And then caffeine elevates the same hormones. And I just did a book review on research papers, and there's a bunch of them showing that elevated glutamate from MSG or MFG, manufactured free glutamate, will also increase cortisol. And I just also gave a video about sodium. Excess dietary sodium will also increase cortisol because it activates the stress response, the sympathetic autonomic nervous system. That's SANS, sympathetic autonomic nervous system, SANS, SANS. So anyways, all of these things are increasing cortisol, and cortisol makes people fat. It's the opposite. There's like a seesaw effect. It's the opposite of oxytocin, the love and security. The opposite of stress is oxytocin hormone, and also melatonin. Melatonin is a go-to-sleep hormone. Cortisol is the wake up and be more alert because you're stressed out hormone. So anyways, you want more oxytocin and melatonin in your life. So anyways, those are some of the big causes. I got a couple more slides here, not much more. Just showing that the incidence of coronary artery disease has dramatically increased in parallel to the obesity epidemic. Actually, it came up a lot before people got so fat. Because when I was a kid, there were a lot of fat people, but nothing like what there is today. Okay, so that actually came up before. And then this guy's kind of interesting, Chris Knob. He's a real smart ophthalmologist guy. He's a little bit of a paleo keto guy. But what I like about him is he did do a lot of background study. And his conclusion, sugar is not the problem. Sugar intake had come up long before the obesity epidemic came up, long before the diabetes epidemic came up. Okay, so that's kind of interesting. And that corresponds to what we've learned about Kempner and the research of the pioneers on diabetes. But you can see diabetes has gone up off the charts, and it really took off about the same time as the obesity epidemic in the USA, like right around, 1980. And it's just, dramatically increased since then. Okay, so here's what's nice. This is Chris Knob's graph again. And here's what he found out, that the increase in diabetes, which has gone off the charts, is very much parallel to the increased intake of vegetable oils. When people say vegetable oils, what they really mean is omega-6 cooking oils. Okay, so that my advice is don't eat any vegetable oils. Esselstyn is correct. Esselstyn tells you no oil, not one drop. That is a smart perspective. Because that's what gets people better, is you stop doing your bad habit. And people say, well, I'm cutting down. What they don't realize is they're getting older, they're getting more fragile, they're accumulating health problems, and they're probably being exposed to other toxic things. So they need to stop messing around and just quit the oil, okay? I mean, if you want to get better, I don't care. All I see is disasters all the time in health, and I try to give people a chance. That's what you need to know. Don't think like a typical chump, mediocrity, middle of the pack. You want to think biblical. Thou shalt not eat oil. Okay, thou shalt not eat processed food. All right, so anyways, there it is. I hope that was interesting and useful.